I know everyone right now who is a patriot in America is fighting, and I think that right now we are realizing just how bad tech censorship is.
I will say it's dismaying listening to the questions from our Democratic colleagues, because consistently the message from Senate Democrats is for Facebook and Twitter and Google to censor more.
Mark Zuckerberg is not simply censoring opinions. He's prescribing which political opinions you're allowed to have.
Well, it seems conservatives are grappling with a new issue facing their community. The president has dubbed it Big Tech, a concept referring to a large group of influential corporations, including Facebook, Twitter, and Google. We've seen labels like this before, such as Big Pharma, a term developed to reference a large group of pharmaceutical giants, usually when referencing their more pernicious actions. Putting big in front of an industry carries a whole range of implications, usually suggesting that an industry is rife with corruption and secret agendas. In this video, I'll be exploring how tech became big tech and how conservatives are using this concept to cast doubt on otherwise benign industries. Let's get into this. Before we go any further, I think it's important we establish their argument, and I'll be doing my best to make it coherent because, believe me, they don't do a very good job at communicating these things. Let's begin by cracking open some literature that will serve as the foundational text for this argument. I'm of course referring to Candace Owens' YouTube live streams. On November 5th, Candace Owens went live on YouTube to reveal she's been suing someone. And no, I'm not talking about the other people she's tried to sue for saying things she doesn't like. I'm of course referring to Facebook.
And I think that right now we are realizing just how bad tech censorship is. The President of the United States has been censored over and over again. If the President of the United States is not free to tweet without fact checkers coming in and swooping it and removing the content, none of us are free. And let me just say this, for everybody who's sitting back enjoying watching our country turn into a socialist country, what you have allowed to happen to this country because you hate the president so much, it's gonna stick around, okay? Could anyone in a million years have imagined that one day in America, they would be telling us when we can go to school, when we can open our business, what we can tweet, what we can put on Facebook, what opinions we're allowed to share, when we have to mask our children. This is crazy. This is a communist country set up.
I found this stream nothing short of mystifying for multiple reasons. First of all, I found it impressive how many buzzwords she was able to cram within the first minute of an off-the-cuff live stream. Around the 30-second mark, she was already fumbling her way through terms like communism and socialism as if they're interchangeable. But beyond the buzzwords, I noticed how disheveled she appeared, how intense the situation must feel to her. Now, to the untrained viewer, this type of presentation, especially on an unplanned live stream, seems pretty normal. But you have to remember, Candace Owens has always presented herself as the pinnacle of a refined conservative woman.
The whole idea of Trump being a homophobe is a bit pointedly ridiculous and shows how uneducated you are.
She does usually speak very passionately. It's how she sells her ideology, but usually she presents herself in a very airtight, polished manner, as her appeal has always been about optics. She's rarely one to bring up facts or specifics, and usually just talks about how crazy the left looks and how tame and calm and rational she looks in comparison. Most female conservative commentators pull this routine, presenting themselves in a very glossy, flawless manner and using that as leverage, showing how much more put together they are than the left is.
Donald Trump has got to go! Hey, hey! Ho, ho! She's gonna eat it!
Wow, that sure is a persuasive argument and a hilarious joke. She's overweight and you're not. I guess I'll go laugh my way to the polls now as I vote for Donald J. Trump. Normally, I wouldn't go on this long about how a woman looks on a random YouTube live stream. In fact, I think that's pretty problematic, and I'm definitely not straight enough to give a shit about feminine looks on YouTube. My point is, this delivery isn't something normal for Candace Owens, even on live streams, which I feel is indicative of just how desperately she's grappling with this issue. So let's break down this claim, which I've reworded to be unpacked a bit more easily. Our freedom is being infringed upon right now, and you can tell because even the president is experiencing this infringement. This infringement comes in the form of digital platforms suggesting what they believe is true, and giving preferential treatments to certain accounts based on the nature of their posts. The very act of flagging posts which go against the decisions of fact-checkers is undemocratic, because we haven't elected these fact-checkers. This results in people's real experiences and opinions being suppressed and labeled as factually untrue, thus limiting their ability to spread and convince others, thus making it impossible for conservatism to grow and thrive. These policies were made to suppress conservatism and advocate for liberal viewpoints. In the grand scheme of things, I could have used her website's summary, but it's more of a rallying cry than anything. The structure of these arguments is not organized. In fact, on her live stream, it felt like she was just grabbing random arguments from a bowl and trying to string them together in a high school improv class. She goes from masks to communism to socialism to just about anything. But around the 6-minute mark is when things begin to crystallize, as she reveals she spent upwards of $40,000 on legal fees to get the ball rolling, and has brought in some high-profile lawyers on board to really try to go after Facebook legally.
And I said, we can't sit back and do nothing about this because everyone is complaining and no one's doing anything, and we need to launch a massive lawsuit. And I want the best lawyers, lawyers that I can't really afford, but it's okay because I trusted that we would be able to crowd raise and fundraise this.
She's also put up a donation website for the cause, unfortunately called factcheckzuck.com, which also includes a copy of the lawsuit. To my untrained eye, the lawsuit isn't really about discrimination like she claims it is. In fact, the lawsuit doesn't go after Facebook much at all, but rather 2 independent fact-checkers. Essentially, they're suing for damages, a little over $1 million a month to be precise. Yep, that's right. Candace Owens, who claims she can't really afford $40,000 in legal fees and therefore needs crowdfunding, managed to generate $780,000 of revenue in 20 days off of Facebook advertising alone. Money she claims to now be missing out on. And I shit you not, this lawsuit includes her own email conversations with Facebook support. These emails are regarding a post she made about the flu magically disappearing to make way for the liberal agenda. Yeah. USA Today flagged this as false information, so she contacted Facebook support, trying to get them to take the disclaimer off of Facebook. Facebook promptly responds with, "Ma'am, we can't process a dispute about something we didn't do the fact-checking on. Please talk to the company that actually fact-checked this so I can get back to craving the sweet release of death." So she proceeded to send a heated email with a fair amount of capitalization in bold letters back to Facebook customer service, this time forwarded to the fact-checker as well, where she asked them to watch a video that proves them wrong. These poor customer service workers. The thing is, this isn't the first lawsuit directed at a social media company for alleged discrimination and financial damages. There's been many, many more.
They flagged our pride. They did not allow us to buy ads. They restricted us, they demonetized us, and they did not stand up for us.
And still, they claim inclusion and even want to march in our parades.
How dare they?
That is why we, as a group, are suing Google and YouTube.
Back in the distant year of 2019, a class action lawsuit was filed against Google for alleged discrimination against LGBT creators. I feel like I could not have found more of a polar opposite here. On one hand, we have a Christian conservative woman who is suing 2 independent fact-checkers for damages of over $1 million a month. And on the other hand, we have a small group of LGBT creators and educators suing a billion-dollar company for comparatively not much money. The outcome is the same, the claim of financial damage, but everything else here is far different. Now, how do you think the internet reacted to these 2 cases? Well, first, we'll look at the response to Candace Owens' lawsuit. Well, 1.2 million views on Twitter and 640,000 on YouTube, and a pretty solid like to dislike ratio. Let's take a look at the discourse.
Indeed. Run for president, make history becoming the first black woman president.
Fact checker is the biggest misnomer I've heard in recent history, besides Black Lives Matter.
Are you saying Black Lives don't?
These fact checkers started to pop up as soon as the truth started getting out.
Thanks for doing this, Candace. I'm a doctor who has been quote-unquote fact-checked. Donation sent.
Alright, now that we've done the equivalent of huffing paint fumes for 6 months, let's look at the response to the LGBT discrimination lawsuit. Well, 43,000 views and mostly dislikes. Okay, and the comments?
They do that to everyone. Welcome to the equality train.
Free speech ain't free when you're trying to get paid.
Can we just stop with this gay LGBTQ stuff? No pun intended.
You need a raise. Here, take my money for being smart.
This video makes me want to sue YouTube for allowing this video on YouTube in the first place.
Isn't it interesting how much the tone changes based on who's filing the lawsuit? Losing your livelihood is just part of equality when it applies to LGBT people, and only then. Free speech also apparently completely ends when you try to make money off of your opinions, unless you're conservative, in which case you're entitled to over $1 million a month off of posting screenshots of your Twitter posts on Facebook. I guess that's the hard work conservatives respect so much. No, not spending hundreds of hours on producing free videos, but rather having a stroke and hitting send tweet. Okay, time to calm down. So, do they have a better case here than Candace Owens? Well, there is real proof of YouTube systemically demonetizing LGBT creators. In fact, the word gay has been demonstrated to hinder your video's ability to be promoted on YouTube. In the lawsuit itself, they did include some evidence to back this up. One of the creators in the class action suit uploaded a video of himself reviewing tea, like the drink, and his video is only demonetized if you put LGBT in the title. If you suppress a video of a minority drinking tea just because they put the term LGBT in the title, that's pretty questionable. Though YouTube will claim that this is just their automated system causing this, and technically they're right about that, but only at a surface level. To go into this any further, I'm going to have to explain how YouTube's content suppression system works, so here's a refresher. YouTube's automated system operates on an AI program that's trained by human input. Essentially, when someone uploads a video, the content is scanned frame by frame, and what's said in the video is automatically transcribed. YouTube takes all this data, along with the title, description, thumbnail, and tags, and they show this information to the AI software. This software does a facial and object recognition scan on the thumbnail, then checks if the video contains any profanity from the subtitle, and determines if the video is about a controversial subject. So with all this data, they determine if the video is family friendly or if it's something they'd rather advertisers not see. In which case, they'll strip your ability to make money off of the video and keep it from getting too popular on the website. But you can dispute this automated system, so when someone disputes this flag, YouTube will have a real person watch it and then tell the automated system if it was correct or not. If the person tells the AI that it was wrong in flagging a video, it will take that into account when processing future uploads and therefore go easier on videos resembling the ones that are verified as advertiser safe by the person. This sounds non-biased, right? Sure, until you realize YouTube doesn't pay a minimum wage for people to monitor this content. They outsource it. Oftentimes to independent contractors in countries where being gay is still illegal. So how the hell do you expect to get fair results by sending small excerpts of a video to a contractor in Saudi Arabia who's paid pennies on the dollar, asking them if something that's illegal in their country is inappropriate or not? And not only are you asking contractors in third world countries about the validity of one claim, you're having these people train an algorithm that will make thousands of decisions an hour about similar content. Decisions that will increasingly echo the choices of these contractors because it's their choices that train this system. So as a result, it's been proven by independent studies that substituting LGBT words for non-LGBT words is an instant way to avoid demonetization. YouTube could fix this. In fact, they whitelisted the term Me Too after thousands of videos were getting flagged and suppressed. That being said, I will argue that there is some element of equality here, as the tea drinking example isn't the only example, of course. These creators also upload videos about sexual topics, which as far as I know would get demonetized even if a straight person was doing the same thing. I personally believe that many of these sexual videos can be very educational. If sex ed in public schools won't do the job, someone will, and since most schools still don't include LGBT people in the curriculum, hundreds of thousands of teens will use YouTube to figure things out, and even I was one of those confused teens for a while. So while I understand the importance of this content and don't think it should be suppressed, I feel as though that not all of these specific creators are star examples of discrimination. Though there is obvious evidence of discrimination happening, which is probably why YouTube has toned down their gay pride in the last few years. They've also tried manually influencing the AI to be more LGBT positive, but I've still run into issues. But then another thing that started happening is that when you search for a controversial subject, YouTube will alter the results to feature videos from mainstream news outlets before all else, which makes this even more confusing. That being said, the big tech focus has really been on Facebook and Twitter. So for the rest of this video, that's where I'll be focusing. One thing I think we need to nail down is why exactly conservatives think companies have started fact-checking prominent posts at all. They seemingly believe that since everyone is socializing online these days, big tech is seizing that power to ultimately control the political narrative. However, I have yet to see someone actually outline why big tech would have a liberal bias to begin with. So, let's open the social media equivalent of Texas to find out more. Alright, so I'm already seeing an account named Big Tech Censorship Sucks with an extremely tasteful profile picture. Well, I see they have some very compelling arguments. Okay, so what about FacebookCensorshipSucks.com? Well, it seems as though someone's figured out how to operate Internet Explorer 4, which is commendable. Alright, time to use a search engine named DuckDuckGo.com because, you know, liberals. Okay, finally, an article named Why Big Tech Wants Biden.
Big tech is salivating at the prospect of a Biden presidency. One reason Silicon Valley lobbyists in Washington are so eager to work with the Biden administration is because they are hopeful the Democrat would repeal many of President Trump's immigration policies, particularly those that have reduced the entry of low-paid, white-collar foreign workers who take jobs from college-educated American citizens.
Okay, I think we're onto something here. After finding this one totally unbiased website, I found more articles from websites I've actually heard of that somewhat echo this claim. I struggle to believe that most people who are complaining about big tech are thinking about immigration policy. However, this claim is surprisingly true. A lot of corporations, including Google and Amazon, use an entity by the name of TechNet to do some of their soulless lobbying, or as they put it, they're the voice of the innovation economy. In the past, they've lobbied to protect anti-consumer practices, like keeping it legal for computers and phones to be purposely built to be unrepairable by the user. They also do lobbying regarding taxes, banking, immigration, and law enforcement. Their immigration agenda is to make it easier for skilled workers to land jobs at tech companies, and tech companies do have a history of severely underpaying foreign workers. I cannot believe I'm giving this much credit to the newamerican.com, which is proudly affiliated with the Law Enforcement Charitable Foundation, by the way. So for once, this conspiracy has some backing behind it. Tech companies seemingly do want a president who's soft on immigration. That being said, I don't think this is their primary motivation in fact-checking. TechNet has spent just $170,000 this year on lobbying, and just a fraction of that on immigration reform. For scale, another lobbying group put $26 million into advertising against one bill that would make automotive technology slightly more repairable, only in the state of Massachusetts. And the bill still won by 75%, so they just wasted $26 million. So there's obviously big money in tech lobbying, so if their main goal was immigration, they put some real money into it.
Facebook has come under fire recently for its role in last year's election. Reports have surfaced showing the social networking site was a breeding ground for misinformation. During the election season, Facebook was paid at least $100,000 by Russian troll farms for advertising.
Back in 2017, after the inauguration, reports of Russia's interference began to surface. It's now known that several groups in multiple countries made fake social media identities in order to spread false information. But it's not like we needed help with foreign countries for that, which is why conservative groups in America have begun spreading what can at best be called rumors and passing them off as factual information. I would know. I remember these misleading posts being part of what swayed me to the right for a few years. Thankfully, I wasn't registered to vote in 2016, but still. Not only was false information spreading, but people were also becoming radicalized by algorithms. In 2016, if you watched a few Owning the Libs compilations on YouTube, your recommendations will begin serving you more and more of this content. And before you know it, you'll have gone from laughing at quirky feminists to asking the Jewish question. The way these algorithms were set up, the content shown to you became more and more extreme at a slow and subtle rate. If someone showed you a Richard Spencer video right after your first SJW cringe compilation, it would have been too much of a leap. So what makes these algorithms so insidious is they know how to ease you into dangerous beliefs. It all came to a head when the biggest advertisers in the world started pulling out of YouTube and Facebook until they addressed the not so insignificant problem of their websites producing mass shooters. It's this capitalistic loyalty to advertisers that I think is the real motivating factor here. If advertisers aren't comfortable with something, it doesn't matter what it is, major platforms can't afford to host it. Whether you like it or not, most of society has reached a consensus that they don't want to crack open a can of Coke if they're helping Facebook radicalize 17-year-olds in the process. So if you don't want a website to take down content that's bad for PR, what's the alternative? Well, we could have a state-funded social media or have the state subsidize the lost advertising revenue on sites like Facebook and Twitter so they can keep more content up. That doesn't really solve the whole mass-producing shooters thing, but I don't think conservatives really care about that. The problem is, when our government tries giving people better access to digital communication, conservatives shut that down. And I really doubt conservatives want to pay higher taxes just so they can post on Twitter. So what's the other alternative? Shutting the up, because this is capitalism and every industry is beholden to the advertisers and hopefully the consumers. You can't have it both ways. If companies can't enforce the terms of service, they won't get ads. Now, I don't really like going into super current events, as I like to think these videos I put hundreds of hours into have some shelf life. I think the last time I made a video about internet regulation was 10 years ago when I was talking about SOPA. Remember SOPA? Yeah, nobody does. That controversy is so old that when I Google search SOPA, I get pictures of Asian soups. Well, anyway, I guess I should talk about what our president is trying to do for his last few months. There currently is a trend of conservatives fighting against Section 230, which offers legal protection for anyone who uses the internet. If repealed or weakened, anyone who posts copyrighted material will be subject to a felony charge with prison time. Obviously, this would render any social media site unable to function, as most things people post would no longer be protected. You couldn't even share music or an email at that point. The argument is that if tech companies want to be selective about what they post, they need to act as publishers then. So I think I can see what's happening here. If conservatives can't succeed at spreading propaganda online, they're gonna take us back to the Stone Age. Anyway, that'll be it for this video. I hope I didn't look too weird here, as this is the first ever video I've done where I used a teleprompter for most of my on-camera parts, but thanks for bearing with me and thanks for dealing with my erratic upload schedule. I want you guys to let me know what you thought of this video, this topic, or really anything at all, so leave a comment down below. I read all of my comments. Remember to like and subscribe, and thank you guys so much for watching once again, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.